Alright, talking about even and odd functions. So a function can be even, it can be odd, or it can be neither even or odd. So I'll go through characteristics of even, and then I'll do odd. But the definition of even is f of negative x equals f of x. They are symmetrical with the y-axis. So if I have a function that looks like this, that is an even function because the y-axis, it's symmetrical with it. If you fold this on top of the y-axis, it'll land on that side. So if a function is symmetrical with the y-axis, that means it's an even function. A lot of times you can just look at the graph and it's an indicator that it might be even. You might have to use the definition to verify that it is even, but this would indicate that it's an even function. So an example, if I have f of x equals x to the fourth minus x squared, let's see if it's even by finding what f of negative x is, and if it ends up being what the original one is, then we know that it's an even function. Okay, so that's what f of x is. Let's find out what f of negative x is. So we're going to plug negative x in, f of negative x, put negative x there, there, and there, so x to the fourth minus negative x squared. So f of negative x is equal to, well, negative x to the fourth. If it's an even power, it's just going to become x to the fourth, just like negative 3 to the fourth is 81, just like 3 to the fourth is 81. So it becomes x to the fourth minus, that's another even power, so x squared. So f of negative x equals x to the fourth minus x squared. So since f of x and f of negative x are the same, then we can say that this function is even. And if you graphed it, this is actually pretty close to what was in the calculator already. X to the fourth minus x squared, and graph it. Even if we zoom in a little bit, you can see that it's symmetrical. The y-axis will chop it right in half, so that's an indicator that's an even function. So now on to odd. An odd function. Definition is f of negative x equals negative f of x. Okay, and they are symmetrical with the origin, and what that means is it looks the same upside down. Okay, so here's an example of this might be an odd function. Okay, so if you look at this, the way it is, it kind of goes up, down, and up again. If we look at it upside down, if I can get this sheet of paper, it looks the same. You go up, down, up again. So if it looks the same upside down, that's a good indicator that it's an odd function. We're going to verify with an example. So here's an example. F of x equals x cubed minus 4x. 4x squared. No, that's not going to work. How about x cubed minus, yeah, that might work. Minus 4x. Sorry, thinking on the fly. Okay, so there's my function, x cubed minus 4x. So we're going to see what f of negative x is. So we're going to plug in negative x, minus 4 times negative x, and see what we get. Okay, so we're going to clean this up. Negative x to the third in odd power is just going to become the opposite of x cubed. And then minus 4 times negative x, so that's plus 4x. Okay, so we could check to see if it's an even function, but since these two are not the same, f of x and f of negative x are not the same, therefore, 3 dots like that means therefore it's not even. So far all we know is that it's not even. Okay, it's less work if it's an even function because you try f of negative x. If they're the same, you're done. You can say that it's an even function. Okay, so now we have to try, remember the definition of odd is f of negative x equals negative f of x. So let's find out what negative f of x is and see if it's the same as f of negative x. So negative f of x means you just take everything and distribute the negative. So negative f of x. So if this is f of x, we're just going to make everything negative. So distribute the negative, I get negative x cubed plus 4x. So let's compare. F of negative x is this. Negative f of x is this. So f of negative x equals negative f of x. They're the same. So therefore, it is an odd function. So if these were not, okay, so you check to see if it's even. The first thing you want to do is figure out what f of negative x is. And if they're the same, then they're even. If they're not the same, then figure out what negative f of x is. And if negative f of x is equal to f of negative x, which it is here, then it's an odd. If these are not equal, and if these are not equal, then you would say it's neither. So maybe I'll just write out the steps real quick. So even, odd, question mark. First step, find f of negative x. Okay, well, we did find f of negative x. If f of x equals f of negative x, then it's even. If not, find negative f of x. If f of negative x equals negative f of x, then it's odd. Otherwise, f of x is neither. So it's not even or odd. I suppose we could check just to kind of confirm what we have here. We had an odd function right up here, x cubed minus 4x. So let's look at what it looks like on our calculator. X to the third minus 4x. We graph it. So that looks a lot like my example earlier. So it's the same function upside down. So it's confirmation that this is indeed an odd function.